I think, sir, we can start now, and then because we'll be having the introduction and all in, so we can then people can keep on joining.
Your call entirely. I'm available.
Right, sir. Right, sir. So, friends, good morning. As all of you are aware, we are continuing our webinar series in which we are interacting with like our seniors. We also plan to expand it further and talk also to achievers within the department, currently who are in the department, and also definitely like we had an interaction with PK Dash sir. We had an interaction with a former CEC sir, and today we are having an interaction with Shahid Khan sir. Sir needs no introduction. He has been a very loved faculty at NIDT. He has worked at various levels. He has worked in systems, has worked as DG investigation. He has worked as superannuated as member, and he also has lot of international assignments. So today we'll be interacting with Shahid Khan sir. I introduce sir formally to all of you, and I request sir, please tell us something about yourself, and please tell us how you landed up in IRS.
Good morning, all friends. Such a pleasure to be amongst old friends. It's like getting back into an oxygen-rich atmosphere. I mean, retirement perhaps takes you away from that atmosphere, and it's a pleasure, always a pleasure, to be back in those surroundings. So thank you very much, all of you, particularly Ritesh and Vikram and Sanjeev, for organizing something like this. It's an excellent initiative. Must compliment you all for this effort, and I hope you carry it on, and it brings good results to all those who are joining and who would like to, pick up ideas and maybe adopt those ideas and get along. So, well, I mean, you all will be knowing I'm 1972 batch. I landed up in income tax, or for that matter, civil services, more by destiny than anything else. I was I was in the last final year of my engineering course at Roorkee way back in May 1971. And that was a time when engineers were facing a lot of unemployment. So we were on the verge of completing our course, and there was a bleak future ahead of us. So we were just, trying to get in whatever jobs were available, and that's how. And this was May or probably June to 1971. It was last days of our project work for B, and I mean, those days you had to first obtain the form and then fill it up and send by post and all those things. So my father was in PCS, so I had some idea of civil service, but I had no idea of income tax. And I had no idea of what is this competitive examination about, how does one go about it. So all that I could see was that admission form, that application form, and based on that I applied. And again, I mean, it's for choice of services. We went by the largest number of vacancies. So largest number of vacancies was income tax, and that's how eventually I landed up here.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, you have worked in NIDT. So, any memorable memories of NIDT and any anecdotes, especially about probationers? All of them must be very senior now, but still, sir, any memorable memories and any anecdotes, especially about probationers?
NIDT was a very special experience for me. See, I joined NIDT as Deputy Director Administration in 1992, which means I had about 19 years odd of service. I mean, this is something which is equivalent to Additional Director Administration now. Typically, I mean, at that time, I was like a typical middle-level income tax departmental officer, good at digging files, good at suspecting everything that an SSC says. My reading list would perhaps be confined to ITRs and board circulars and things like that. My management ability was confined to maybe managing half inspector and 2 UDCs and 1 stenographer and those kind of things. So a typical mid-level officer confined to the activities of the department, and And then NADT was a big learning experience for me. I mean, I don't know what could I give to the probationers, but for me it was a huge, major learning experience. And if you are talking of anecdotes, I think I would like to narrate something which is, I mean, more of any particular probationer or officer, but a learning experience for me personally. See, I landed there in April or May 1992, and as DT administration, I mean, the faculty management was my responsibility. I used to take early morning walks, and I saw these groups of probationers doing Shramdan at different spots in the campus. They were trying to do. So I asked some of them, and they were extremely cynical about it. They said it's just that the administration wants to keep us busy, and they give us this kind of job, and we pick up rubbish from one place, put it at another place, and next day some other group comes and it does it, the other thing, and so on. So this was I mean, something very uneasy. It made me very uncomfortable. I think this is not how things ought to be done. I mean, this was a Shramdan effort, and Mr. Malhotra, Owen Malhotra was the DG, and he was very keen on Shramdan. So I had a consular group attached with me. I asked the probationers, what is it? I mean, why is it? Why are you all so unhappy with this? So the complaint was that this is a forced labor, and I mean, nobody can be happy with forced labor. I said that's a valid point, but then let's make sense out of it. So I mean, eventually one thing leading to another. What was decided was that we will convert it into a Shramdan project. Rather than simply doing a Shramdan, we will do, each batch will do a Shramdan project, which will lead to betterment of the faculty, betterment of the campus. So, I mean, some of you may remember, there used to be this senior officers hostel called Takshila. It had just come up about a year back. And there were a lot of construction rubble and those things lying just across that Takshila hostel. So I said, why not? I mean, if we are doing a project, why not do it for a particular spot? Let's make it, at least usable. So that's how a group came forward, and they said, what exactly do you want? I said, my concern is that we should do something worthwhile, and this should become a memory for your particular batch. You should be able to take pride later on that this is what our batch did for the campus. And all efforts should be yours. Whatever support you want from the faculty or from the administration, that would be available. So that's how. So suddenly a group of probationers came forward some days later, and they came with a plan that we want to. Why simply clean up the place? Why not make landscape the space? Why not convert it into a good garden? Why not go ahead? So that's how some 6-7 people came forward, and we had a big plan, and we had a big meeting with the DG and all the batch together, and tried to involve everybody in them, and we stopped that Shramdan business of weekly this thing. We converted the entire group, the entire batch. It was 45th batch, I think about 120 people on. And all of them on a weekly basis would go to that thing. A project report was prepared, some cleaning up was required, some support was required, etc., etc., etc. And I don't know how many of you really recognize that place. That Lumbini Garden and Meeting Point came out of that effort. So towards the end of their stay in Academy, 45th batch people were so keen to see that it is complete by the time they leave that forget about morning Shramdan. Some of them would come in the afternoon also after classes, and when they went for Bharat Darshan, they left behind some people from 46th batch to take care of this place and made sure that this is complete by April. Must have been 93 when their valediction was there. And the valediction time, Dr. Manmohan Singh came as finance minister, and Mr. Ramamurthy was the chairman. So chairman inaugurated it, and I don't know if you have seen that stone, this thing that 45वें बैच की उपलब्धि. So that it gave me several learning points. One, of course, that you have to, involve the people concerned. You have to give them a sense of self-esteem, so the pride in their work, and take everybody's opinion. Take that, and I mean something worthwhile. People feel happy when they feel that they are involved in doing something worthwhile, in which they can take pride. And other things, I mean, managing the project and providing support and guiding us. I mean, those are routine things. So all this business of management lessons of motivation and self-esteem and that was all right. But doing it on ground for a small, I mean, it's not something very great. It's a small thing. But it was an experience which I carried forward from academy. And it was much help later on in handling other projects. So that was one experience. I often remember myself that probably I learned more there than others would have learned from me.
Thank you.
Another. Let me share one more thing of NADT that period. Those days, probationers were. I mean, one of the examination used to be in Muria accounts. Marwadi accounts, and those account books, Bahi Khata, some were kept within the academy, and they used to have a test in Muria. So, I mean, it didn't make sense to me. 19 years in the department, I never handled any Marwadi account. So why should probationers be saddled with Marwadi account? So this discussion came up, and then I said that instead of Marwadi account, why shouldn't we give them computer exposure? Because till then they were not getting any computer exposure. There was no computer lab in the academy, and that's how this issue cropped up. That we must have a test in computer accounts, and that time there was no facility within the academy. So we organized an arrangement with the Ordnance Factory Staff College, Ambajari, and we used to take probationers to Ordnance Factory Staff College for computer training in the afternoon. I think once or twice, 2 days or 3 days a week, and I also joined that courses, and that was my exposure to computerized accounts. And then, of course, we set up a computer lab in the academy, etc. So those 2-3 things were, gives me a lot of satisfaction looking back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's nice that you mentioned computerization, because that was my next question. First of all, I would once again welcome all seniors, all colleagues and friends. And since my next question is about your tenure as DG Systems, it's interesting that recently our DG Systems, Subrata Das sir, and Principal Chief Commissioner, he has also joined. So it is just a coincidence that he has joined just when I'm asking you about your tenure as DG Systems and what you remember, sir, and what you have contributed, your experiences as DG Systems, sir, for computerization.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Subrata Das. Well, first of all, I was not DG Systems for most of the time. I was Director System, DI System. In those days, there used to be only one DI Systems. And I was DI Systems for 6 years, 2000 to 2006. And I landed up at a very critical time in the System Directorate. You see, our computerization program goes back to 1993. So when I came to Systems, computerization program was in progress for something like 7 years. And also, please bear in mind that Income Tax Department as such was a pioneer as far as government departments are concerned. Computerization effort, I mean, we were the first ones to enter into this, and of course, we had the problems of the first starter. So in 2000, when I joined Directorate, lots of things had already happened. Some of the application softwares, all the application software, 8 of them were already delivered, complete. TCS had completed the software. 36 odd regional computer centers were functional. Lots of PCs were purchased and supplied, but it was going top down, which means, you see, those days, PCs were supposed to work with air conditioners. Now, AC was a very, very highly valued thing. So therefore, it was decided to first give PCs to commissioners and then downwards. So that's all. Something like maybe a couple of thousand computers would have been installed by then. Our main two of our main softwares, application software, that is PAN and TAS, tax accounting. Those were already implemented to a very large extent. And the expectation from me was that now that this basic groundwork is there, you have to push it and take it forward to processing of returns and rest of the business. And I mean, of course, before coming to systems, I was Commissioner Rajkot, and I was also involved in implementation of PAN and TAS at Rajkot. So I had some idea of what's going on. So by then, about 1 crore PAN was allotted. This tax accounting was taking place in the regional centers, which means the challans, I don't know, many of you would have seen those challans, 4 copies running into this thing. And these challans will come from the bank to the nodal bank, from nodal bank to zonal account officer, from there to the regional computer center, etc., etc. So my initial approach was that already lots of things have happened. I have to only push it further so that we move to processing of data entry of returns and then processing of returns. But then as I started looking, as I started doing that, going center to center and talking to commissioners and making sure that PAN is in place, lots of problems started coming in. At those days, PAN was the only identifier in the country. There was no Aadhaar, there was no other number at all. So everybody wanted a PAN number. And those PAN applications used to be filed with the dark counters of every income tax office. And from there, those applications would go to the computer center where they will be entered and somebody will scan the photographs and that. So, by the first year of my time in systems, my dark PAN used to be full of complaints on PAN. Complaints, साल भर से नहीं मिला, इसके नाम पे उसका फोटो लग गया, मेल applicants का gender जो है वो female दिखा दिया गया, and so on and so on, all kinds of. So one would try to correct them, try to speak to, and we'll do all kinds of bureaucratic steps, grievance fortnight, grievance handling mechanism, putting more manpower, putting this, that, and the problem. 2001, CAG had carried out an audit of Systems Directorate, and they came up with a long list of shortcomings and problems and this and that. Then, of course, it also became a public issue in the sense that complaints would appear in the newspapers that PAN is creating this kind of a problem and the department is unable to handle it. So my first assumption that PAN and TAS is in place, now let's move over to processing of return, that went out of the window. Luckily what happened is that in the year 2001, Dr. Kelkar was appointed as, Dr. Vijay Kelkar was appointed as advisor to the finance minister in the rank of Minister of State. And Dr. Kelkar committee was set up to look into tax reforms. So Dr. Kelkar invited me for a discussion. We had a long discussion on this, and he asked me what exactly are your problems. And he said that nothing doing. We have to set this right. Just in that year, probably this whole business of ranking of doing business had also come in, and tax was regarded as one of the items which was pulling India down on the ranking of doing business in India. So Dr. Kelkar had a long, I had a long discussion with Dr. Kelkar. I pointed out to him all these things. Of course, there was one more aspect, which was the financial aspect of it. That is procurements, tendering, evaluation of tenders, evaluation of bids, and this and that. So there was technology, there was finance, and there was departmental processes, income tax processes. So all these three have to be married to work. So I mean, when I narrated all this, my long list of woes, so to say, to Dr. Kelkar. So he said that, and this I mean, the finance matters would go to the FA in the Ministry of Finance, and they will have a look, and they will have their own view, and they will, ask hundreds of questions, and by the time you respond to those questions, your estimate on tenders and those things will go out of the window. So those things will there. So Dr. Kelkar came up with this idea that if this is the problem, then let's have a committee, and everybody who has some role in decision making in this whole business should be on that committee. And then he also persuaded the finance minister to delegate FM's power to this committee. So this became an empowered committee, formally appointed by the ministry, with complete financial and administrative powers. And Dr. Kelkar was wise enough. I mean, I give great regards to him. He was wise enough to involve lots of people from the private sector. On the empowered committee, we had Dr. Karan Karnik from NASCOM. We had Mohandas Pai from Infosys. We had Dr. Prakash Hevalkar, who was a very renowned computer consultant in Bombay in those days. I mean, just to mention that Prakash Hevalkar used to charge $600 per hour of consultancy charges in those days. And we were absolutely astonished that how can somebody charge $600 an hour? But anyway, so we had all these people on the empowered committee, and that set the ball rolling. The first thing that came out of that meeting, I mean, the procedure that was set out was that we means people from the systems directorate will send our agenda with detailed meeting notes a month in advance to all the participants, and they will come back to the meeting with whatever their view, their comments, and whatever decision had to be taken will be taken on that very day in the meeting itself, and thereafter the implementation is on my shoulders. So that's how we proceeded, and a few things that came up in this. I mean, the bigger learning. One was that the people from the private sector said that why should you be doing something on which is not your ken, which is not your strong point. You should do what is your strong point. Let others do what is their strong point. So then this idea was that data entry was a huge problem those days. So data entry should take place only where the paper comes for the first time in contact with the organization. Data entry should be only at that point. Everybody should be user of data, not creator of data. And in fact, the bigger learning there was that if you computerize your existing manual processes, you are going to end up amplifying the problems of manual processes. So what had happened till then was that our effort from 93 to 2000 was to make sure as far as possible that processes remain unchanged. Whatever was being done on the manual side should now happen on the computer. I mean, and that was the wisdom of those days, that computerization should not make things difficult for users. It should only, make the manual into a computer format. The empowered committee, we discovered, I mean, we were told and we learned that that's not the right way to go about it. We need to re-engineer our processes first to really get the advantages of the computerization. So that's how it all started, and we had to virtually have a relook on each of our these modules, the so-called building blocks of computerization effort. PAN had to be outsourced. PAN processes had to be completely recast, and I mean that. There were a variety of problems on that. One, of course, was the re-engineering of the process, PAN process itself. Then outsourcing invited protests and comments from the departmental unions. Then there was the issue of who will do it. I mean, who exactly will do it? And I mean, just to share an interesting aside, which just came to my mind. In 2000, I think it was 2002. When our third phase was sanctioned by the cabinet for a total financial outlay of 265 crore odd. That was also the time when Unit Trust of India UTI 64 had landed up into a big scam. And UTI was facing a big difficulty about public criticism as well as financial loss and so on. So, and the Revenue Secretary was also the Finance Secretary. And as Finance Secretary, he was facing this problem about UTI 64. So when this came up, our financial approval came up, cabinet approval came up, UTI somehow had a subsidiary also called UTI IT Supports Company, so some name, which was a small IT company of a subsidiary of UTI. So the proposal came from the secretary that why don't you award this entire thing, this entire perspective plan of 265 crore to this UTI entity, and they will do the computerization for you. And to my utter dismay, the member in charge was almost inclined to agree with that. And the idea was to, hand over our thing. Why idea? It was recorded in the minutes of meeting that UTI will carry out. When this came to me, I said, how can this be done? UTI, this company had a total capital of, I think, about 5 crore or something. How can we hand over? What do they know about? Anyway, so what we did was we tried to wriggle out of that decision of the finance minister, of the finance secretary. By saying that let us first give them only the PAN-related work. We will look at other things later on. And then that's how PAN was awarded to UTI. And it was simultaneously, I had a very good friend in Mr. C.V. Bhave, who was IAS 75 batch, who was then CEO and MD of NSDL. So NSDL also wanted to take up this work. So I said that let's have a competition. So we will have two parties doing PAN for us. So that's how it was awarded. And at that time, we were the first government agency, government department, who had outsourced a core departmental function to a private sector, private entity, and that too against service charges. That means we were charging something like, I think, 58 rupees or 59 rupees per PAN application. So, and I mean, of course, this caused lots of issues and wrinkles within the setup as to how can income tax department force a taxpayer to pay those 59 rupees. But the discussion ultimately emerged that if you want good service, you have to pay for it. And service was that they will give us a PAN card within, I think, 7 working days or something like that. So that's how the first step of PAN outsourcing took place. And luckily, as it turned out within a matter of, I think, a few months, the whole problem relating to PAN. By the way, in between, the subject of CAG report on PAN was taken up by PAC, Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament. And Public Account Committee literally took us to the cleaners. they said that you can't do something as simple as that, just issuing a number. Why, if you can't do even that, what is your computerization program? Anyway, so using all that, those PSC comments and the audit comments and the newspaper reports, etc., we moved for outsourcing of PAN. And but while doing outsourcing, we made sure that the process would be redesigned. This will be service level agreements would be there. There will be audit and penalties on the outsourcing vendors, etc., etc. I remember, I mean, another aside which is coming to my mind, Mr. Bhagwat Sarup used to be member in charge of computerization at that time. And some of us in the system were very unhappy, or not unhappy, unconvinced with this idea of outsourcing our work. So Mr. Sarup sensed it. Nobody said it, but he sensed it. And he called me once and he said that, Mr. Khan, it is your responsibility that this outsourcing vendor succeeds. Because if he fails, it is your failure. You have to make sure all conditions are in place, that what has been awarded to work awarded to him brings result as expected. And otherwise, we will go back by some 10 years in our computerization. So that's how it went to this thing, and then other things happen. I mean, I think I was a lot of this.
Yes. That's fantastic, sir. That's fantastic. And it's quite interesting because, very frankly, originally computerization for many meant typing on computer instead of typing on typewriter.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, sir. And so now let us start the question answer session. We can invite questions from everyone so that it will be more participative. Mithali Madam has a question. Ma'am, will you ask or shall I read it out? Okay, then I am reading out Mithali Ma'am's question. My question for Khan sir is, how does he view the present usage of huge database by ITD? Is it commensurate with resources invested by the department, or is there scope for more data mining to move to non-intrusive and highly effective tax administration?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, let me say in the beginning itself that I'm out of department now for over 10 years. So, I mean, my information, my knowledge on the subject is dated to that extent. But yes, we have a huge database of information, and I believe that it is being used both for cross verification with other financial agencies as well as within the department. Now, what I read, I've just read in the notifications which have come for faceless assessments and faceless appeals and so on. They are specifically talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning and those kind of things. So my sense is that our databases would have matured to a level where those decisions are possible. But then I was dealing with Bangladesh Revenue once, and then I had taken that group to Vaishali CPC. And that time what I saw was that it was being put to good use, both for verification purposes and for discovery of new transactions.
Thank you, sir. Dash sir is here. Subrata sir, would you have any questions for sir? Especially since you have also worked as Principal Chief Commissioner, DG Systems and all. Anyone else has any questions, please? Yes, Subrata sir, please.
Ritesh. Good morning, sir. I'm here basically to pay my regards to Khan Saab. He has been an institution. When I was at CIT April, I had a couple of interactions. I was a much junior officer, so didn't have the confidence to talk to him. He was an institution at that point in time. All I am here just to tell sir that what he left behind was a very strong establishment, and I'm very happy to tell him that this has grown stronger over a period of time. And I enjoyed my 2 years stint. A lot of changes, a lot of things came about during that period. But all these were possible because Khan Saab and others. Of course, I'm sure there will be other people also, because it is always a team effort. But there are people, leaders like Khan Saab, who lead the team from the front and also give ideas which take their own shape. So basically, it's doing fantastically well. The way everywhere I go and tell people, I mean, at the highest possible level, that is whether it's the parliamentary committee or maybe with the minister, you got to just tell one thing to them: the way we have adapted to technology. Come to think of it, one ITO who is 57-year-old sitting somewhere in Panaji or Kozhikode and who has no exposure, he's still using all your functionalities, using your ITBA, doing it very well. So a lot of credit goes to people like Khan Saab who have visualized that, and also a lot of credit goes to these people who are using it. In fact, during my time in the first year, I used to sit with the entire field on Thursdays explaining. There is one area where systems has to work on is to explain the processes to the users. That is, our officers should know exactly what is happening, what is the way forward. Because if you keep it in a closed atmosphere and people think it is something mystical. There is nothing mystical about the whole thing. This is one of the most logical thing computer system. But Khan Sahab, I mean, for you, you may not be looking back, but the revolutionary step that you took and which really we benefited and subsequently and we learned is that outsourcing. Outsourcing was an idea which when it came during your time, as you told us, I knew that also, that we are the first guys to outsource in the government. It is so difficult. You must have taken a lot of personal risk because as a principal disease systems, they ask you pointed questions. He says, okay, we go ahead with it, but are you sure it is going to meet with success? So I think even in the last 15, 20 years, the most revolutionary step was this outsourcing thing. And that has worked fantastically well. We have expanded that. As far as the data management is concerned, in some way, I had got a professor from Harvard Business School because when we went there, I struck a friendship with few of them. So one of them came and he has written fantastic. He is Mr. Professor Datar, who is the head of the innovation lab in Harvard Business School, and he spent 2 days with us. And then he has written so, I mean, perceptibly about the whole thing. He says, this is how things should be done. These prototypes should be implemented elsewhere. So now probably we are in a position where we can sell our technology to a number of countries. But the drawback, sir, is that we do not have, we have to have groups of officers coming in and contributing. We have not been very successful in making the team. I brought in a couple of guys, 2-3 guys who are doing very well now. I think they work on Saturdays, Sundays. They have no timelines or office hours. Every hour is office hour for them. But there are many such people who would like to come. It's not only for coming to Delhi and staying in Delhi. But all the guys who are there are extremely committed. But the thing is, we have to find another 10, 20 guys like them who are interested. I have been fiddling around with computers from 1992 when we were saddled with a lot of data in Bombay from the stock exchange and we were asked to analyze. And that is how we got in touch with NIC and we had some understanding of data analysis. So it takes a little bit of grooming. So the grooming should start from the academy. And secondly, the youngsters that are there coming in the first 2-3 years, they come with very good ideas. They're straight from the university. They come with ideas. They don't have managerial experience. So a lot of managerial innovations are taking place. More is required. But all I can tell, sir, that this thing has been carried forward very well by his successor. I was very fortunate that I also spent 2 years doing and getting that exposure. And that's all I have to say. I have no questions to ask because I have been answering questions. So,
no, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dasab. I mean, I'm aware that a lot of good work has happened. I mean, whatever building blocks were there, they have now matured into multi-story buildings.
The building blocks are very strong. That's what I'm saying. Especially the outsourcing was revolutionary. I've never found an example anywhere. Our good work never get, people don't come to know about any good work by individual officers. So at least in our close group, I can tell you, sir, that because I have to compare when I do customs, I do other departments, and obviously all the departments are now into computerization process. But we started early, and we started early because of visionaries like you. And thank you very much for that.
Just to add a little bit to what you were saying about this Harvard Business School thing, I mean, I'm aware that World Bank Group asked E&Y to carry out a study on our effort, our computerization effort, and a long note, I think it's more than 50 or 60 pages, report was prepared by Mr. Poddar, Satya Poddar, who is who's a partner in E&Y, on transformational effort of IT in Income Tax Department. Yes. And that has circulated amongst lots of these funding agencies as to how this has been done and what lessons can be picked up from that.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Vibha ma'am has something to say. Vibha madam, please.
Hello, Vibha. How are you? I don't see you on the screen. Vibha was another very, very important element of that computerization effort. She was with us for the whole of 6 years in the directorate, and I think probably she was there a year after I left also.
She's on mute. Vibha ma'am, you would like to say something? I think she's on mute. We'll come back to her. There is a question from Vikash Dubeji. Vikashji, would you ask or shall I ask for you? Okay, I'm asking it. Sir, the question of Vikash Dubeji is, sir, the way things are reforming, can we see income tax and GST administration totally being done by computers only? I guess with specific set of protocols and using artificial intelligence for assessment, even assessment can be done entirely by computer software. Your response, sir?
I would have some reservations, on that, because see, now I am on the other side of the table. I do a little consultancy work for mostly on international assessment cases, and I see lots of efforts. Tax is not in isolation. For income tax, for us income tax people, when we were in the department, for us, income tax is an isolated effort or event or issues. For a business group, it's part of a huge lot of things. There are whole variety of compliances have to be carried out. There are commercial issues, there are technology issues, there are IP issues, and so on and so on. So therefore, no matter how good artificial intelligence or those kind of things you can develop within the department, there are inputs which have to come out from human mind. And I think at the last stage, you can do the groundwork part of it, but the last step will have to be human.
Yes. I also. Sir, Vibha ma'am, can you try now? Vibha ma'am, please unmute yourself and speak.
Am I audible now?
Yes, now audible.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Vibha. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Sir, I don't have a question for you, but when you were speaking about systems, I went down memory lane. I felt so nostalgic. And for everyone else, I must share that it was wonderful to work with sir from 2001 to 2006 during those initial days of computerization, when probably it was the foundations of computerization in income tax department were being laid. And he was a wonderful boss, I must say. And we really, really learned from him and enjoyed working with him. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Vibha. Thank you. Vibha was one of the workhorses of the system directorate, handling CEDA project and handling AST and handling half a dozen other important things.
Thank you, ma'am.
So much, sir.
I request Poonam Rai to ask a question, please.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, as Das sir has also said that you have led a revolution of outsourcing, and we are also in the midst of another revolution in the department of the faceless assessments. I would just like to seek your opinion on, sir, another revolution to come from systems is to integrate the common man with the departmental, sir, base or portfolio. Till now, I think we are only managing or trying to expand to people who are filing their ITRs. If some systemic approach, if you would, as a revolutionary approach, see to it, or if there's a possibility, because some out of the box step has to come about for this also, sir.
You see, lots of efforts are now afoot, different agencies, different departments, different state governments, and so on, which impact the life of common man. And it has really, I was part of National E-Governance Action Plan also, and I was part of Ministry of IT advisory group on this. It has taken off. The effort to simplify life or compliances on the part of common man has taken off. And to that extent, it has also cut down a lot of red tape and petty level corruption and all those things. But integrating that into a larger whole, India one kind of a application system or something like that has its own limitations. You see, in a federal government kind of a setup where states have their own territory to protect. When I was doing that work on National E-Governance Action Plan, where various departments, I think there were about 21 odd central departments which were trying to computerize, and some of them were dealing with subjects which had state governments, which are part of state governments, land records and things like that. So the kind of coordination of it, I was very lucky. I used to think that I'm very lucky that when I was handling systems, because I didn't have to go to any state government. If we take a decision within a department, we implement it countrywide. But for those departments, transport or health or even education and all that, to implement a project means you have to involve some 30 odd state governments, and each state government had some are extremely advanced on computerization, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and so on. Some are extremely backward on that. They have their own issues. So all those things are there, but within those limitations, what the name of that program has now been changed as Digital India, but that Digital India has cut down a lot of government flab on this. Maybe someday some effort will be made to integrate it. I don't see that happening very quickly.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else has questions, please? Sir, till we get more questions from our members, how do you spend your time, sir, now?
I keep myself busy, fairly busy. I decided right in the beginning that I will spend a lifetime in income tax, and I have to remain in touch with the subject. And this subject is so dynamic, that if you don't remain in touch maybe for a week, you are. By the way, let me also share a small little snippet with you. In the department, we look at things, or we look at the law which was at least 2 years old. On a consultancy assignment, you have to look at law as it is to come next year. Okay, so while as a commissioner of appeal or as the assessing officer, you have a lot of material on any particular issue of income tax law, maybe articles, judgments, is that other. On the consultancy side, when a proposal comes in a finance bill in February, the trade wants to look at that proposal and get ready, and they want an opinion then and there, and there is no material to look at it. So that's the difference between working on the tax side in the department and working on the tax side from the taxpayers side. For example, just like this equalization levy which came in Finance Bill 2020, Finance Act 2020, there is no material. And if international agencies or international business groups want an opinion on equalization levy, I have nothing to go by except my the antenna, the signals. So one has to, but it has kept me very much in touch with the subject, both, and I've tried to remain in touch on the both aspects, that is tax as well as systems.
Vikram, you have a question?
Namaste, sir. My question is that, sir, why is a posting in systems directorate not looked upon as a good posting? And how do we recognize or incentivize officers to be posted there, or should we train officers to do good work in systems? Because there is a lot of scope of technology in the department.
Of course, all said and done, systems is a support organization. The key activity of income tax department is not systems; it is tax. So in that sense, it's a support organization, like HRD is a support organization, or training is a support organization, and so on. So that point is to be taken. But apart from that, systems also require a certain kind of mental attitude, mental readiness to look beyond the immediate and be able to take care of technology. And technology is a fast-moving animal. You have, if you are in this business, you have to remain in touch of what's going on and implement that. As far as incentives are concerned, okay, we can have some kind of incentives, but there are not many incentives possible in government, apart from some special pay of 1,000 rupees or, so, or some such thing. We did introduce, those choice postings and those things, but really doesn't work. The work itself is a reward. Those who consider this work as a reward in itself, those will come and they will stay and they will make things different. Of course, there are special requirements. It's not that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's an extremely satisfying work when you end up with a good result. And the biggest, for me personally, the biggest incentive was that I was acting on a wide canvas, and whatever we were doing in systems affected the department across the country. And doing that is in itself, an incentive or a reward. Sunil Sharma, I can see you. Good morning. How are you? You are mute.
Good morning, Sunil sir. Good morning. Sir, Sanjay Joseph, additional CIT of 2004 batch, he has a question. Sanjay, please, after that, Sunil sir, आप भी कुछ पूछिए. Sanjay, please, आपका कुछ question था?
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So my question is more, for the last 10-15 years, what I am seeing in the department is that all of our actions, rules and regulations are targeted at our own officers. They are not honest. Catching them is our only, even our amendments and giving the powers and whatever it is. Why can't we use technology in our vigilance and free our officers? We now all our it's. I'm asking about why in vigilance we can't use technology, AI, whatever it is.
I believe that some kind of a monitoring or some kind of data gathering on that aspect of the work is already there. I'm not sure of it, but yes, some basic information regarding actions taken or actions not taken, or that is possible. But beyond that, I don't think vigilance is an issue which can go on the computerization route very far.
Right. Sunil sir, पूछे sir.
You are mute.
Mute. I think there is some till Sunil sir sorts out his mute issue. Sir, what is your message to all of us? What is the message to everyone at all levels, youngsters especially?
Let me say this: for bureaucrats, in times to come, decision making is going to be a major difficult issues for two reasons. Work processes, systems, country itself is becoming far more complex, and decision making in a complex environment and in the face of uncertainty with different vested interests having conflict with each other. In that kind of a situation, for a bureaucrat to, I'm talking of senior level people, for them to take decision, to stand up to take good decisions, to stand up by those decisions is going to be a challenge. And that challenge has to be met with, number one, of course, constant updating of your knowledge. Knowledge is, for us or for people who were 10 years or 15 years senior to us, it was good enough to learn something and live by it for next 10 years or 15 years. Today, knowledge is getting outdated by the hour. So apart from your ability to stand up on your principles, on your values, etc., updating of knowledge, being ready to handle complexities and uncertainties in time to come, that will become a major issue for decision makers in government. So, how does one tackle that? That's an individual decision. There's very little advice one can give, apart from the general thing that keep yourself updated the subject. Try to learn, try to have an open mind, pick up things, pick up ideas. Don't get bogged down to what you learned 10 years ago. What you learned 10 years ago may have been good at that time, but it has lost its meaning today. So those kind of things. But yes, it's not going to be easier as time moves on.
Thank you, sir. Sunil sir, nahi ho raha hai. ठीक है, no problem. So, sir, I think we have covered all the issues more or less. If anyone has any more questions, or we can wind up with closing speech from sir.
Sir,
I think, sir, Poonam again. Yeah.
Yes.
Please.
Sir, I wanted to ask you if this current scheme of faceless assessment was in the offing, was down the pipeline when you were at the hearing of things.
No, faceless assessment was not in the pipeline. But we did a project. We were doing a project called CIDA. CIDA is the Canadian International Development Agency. CIDA was doing a project with us. It has 5 or 6, on probably 7 different modules on different aspects of work, and one of them was related to scrutiny assessments. And in that connection, a group from our department had gone to US, to Canada. And there was also a UNDP project which Mr. Pradeep Saxena was leading, and I had gone to US as part of that project. Now there, this issue of team assessments did crop up. Team assessment. Now US has this practice of team assessments in which when a case is taken up for an audit, depending upon the kind of group or kind of case that is there, they will assemble a team, and those teams will have a domain expert, somebody who knows that particular line of business. It will, of course, have a tax expert. It will have an economist, and maybe even a statistician. So we learned that team assessments, where a team of officers specializing in different kind of aspects of a particular group would look at the accounts and then carry out an end-to-end audit, and that audit will include other entities of that group and look at the group as a whole. So that was something which impressed us very much, and we had a report on team assessments. That is, the idea was, there will be specialists within the department who will have a specialist knowledge or experience of a particular business. Let's say a stockbroker, or let's say a mining company, or let's say, So, but in this faceless scheme, the thing that I notice is that we are not. In fact, faceless assessment scheme is treating that all assessments require same skills and same knowledge and same expertise, and all officers within the department have the same expertise, the same knowledge, and anybody can do any work irrespective of. So that's something which I think needs a little tweaking. Probably it will be better if we have a specialist, or entirely have a database where people have specializing in a particular field, and cases are may still be allocated on this basis, but but it goes to people who have expertise, because this is, I mean, really surprises me that complex assessment of large groups can be handled by anyone anywhere. That doesn't seem to be very sensible to me. So, but maybe that change will come eventually.
Right, sir. Sir, we have just two more questions, sir. One is Sunil sir will say something, and then Vikas Prajapati, and then we'll wind up, sir. Sunil sir,
Sure.
now I think you got it.
Good morning, sir. Very good morning, sir. Sir,
Good
sorry,
morning.
I got the message late, so could join only late. So I would just like to listen to you for whatever time that is left that you to speak, sir. It's a wonderful actually seeing you again, even though it is on the screen. It's so wonderful, sir. So I don't have any questions, sir. I'll just listen to what you have to say, sir.
Where are you these days? हैं कहाँ आप?
Sir, अभी Bangalore में हूँ. Will be back in Delhi in November.
No, have you returned from your study leave, or you are still on study leave?
Sir, I have taken VRS, sir. Actually, finally.
You've taken VRS? Oh, I didn't
Yes,
know
sir.
that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On 23rd of July, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is also news to us also. Sir, one question from Vikas Prajapati, because we're running out of time. So we'll
Sure.
take it as the last question. Vikas Prajapati, a young officer, has this question. Income Tax Department is proud to be a pioneer in using technology for providing services and improving internal functionality. But as we move further, what are your views on limitations of systems? Example, currently, all communication through ITBA and DIN limits officer functionality to what system allows. How can we strike a balance? That's the key. How can we strike a balance?
No, my understanding is that the requirement is only routing your communication via that what do they call it, National Faceless Assessment Center. I mean, using DIN and those kinds of things. It doesn't limit your authority or your ability to raise questions or ask whatever you want to ask. It's just that the process of asking that is via the National E-Assessment Center or Faceless Assessment Center.
Jesus. Sir, I think we'll call it a day. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your time. Thank you all the participants for coming and participating, though it's a long weekend. I thank all of you once again, and thanks, sir, once again. I request everyone to unmute, and please let us all clap for sir. All please
Thank
unmute.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and all the very best to all of you. And thank you,
Thank you.
especially to Vikram and Ritesh.